All right, this is the step pyramid of Djoser, or just Djoser. The DJ sound makes it z or z sound, so Djoser. And most people realize, just see this thing as just sitting out in the sand as a large pile, and that's all they really see. But if you were able to get a bird's eye view out of it or really step back, you'd realize that it had this huge courtyard and all this temperature around it, even a drawn in moat, like I've shown in some of the other pyramids and the ones they call unfinished. And then there's also this barrier around it that's even higher. Now, this is all built much later. In fact, something new they found here, not really new that they found, but somebody figured out, and it wasn't really known until somebody put two and two together. You can almost see it in here. Can you see how the front of the blocks go to here and they just stop, and there's this whole area missing right here? It comes out. Well, that's because the pyramid used to only go to here, and it was much smaller. It was a 4-step pyramid. Now it's a 6. And originally it's believed that it was just a mastaba. And so it was this big 1 here. And then they had built the secondary part on it and then tore that down and built it all to like this. Well, they didn't tear down the bottom part. They just added on to it. And I think you can tell from this perspective that if we were to put flat boards on all this, this actually has the same golden rule and shape of the Great Pyramids at Giza. And the sides, though, here go up a little bit more steep, but then it steps in more steep and it steps in. But if you were to flatten it down and you look at this angle running up here, you know, it really looks very similar. And indeed, it's within a degree. But this stepping here almost relates to the bent pyramid and its bottom part and how pointy that would look. And that looks like the pyramids that you even see up in Greece, and one of which predates all these pyramids. And also the smaller ones that they see up in Meroe and stuff that are more pointy, and they come up more to a pointed hat type effect. And it's that different ratio that they have. And in my last video that I had that shows some Egyptian knowledge on it, it showed the golden rule and how you find the pointier pyramid and how you find the true pyramid, and even a 3D representation of it. Kind of whenever somebody's playing around with this, they would see it inside there, and you could tell maybe where this concept even came from. It's possible. But where did this concept of building these come from? Well, step pyramid, it's kind of telling because the Sumerian steps is where these originally come from. The mastaba concept seems to predate this in Sumerian lands, and there are many people that believe the original King Narmer was actually a Sumerian Priest-King. In fact, there's an exhibit at the Louvre Museum, and the one that they show as being meant as Narmer is actually a Sumerian Priest-King statue. And then they develop off into this here, and of course there's Nakata culture, and there's really groups of people that are north and south that come together as one. Everybody thinks of Egypt as being this constant thing, but quite often through even its long lineage, it was semi-broken and back together and all types of things. But it's, you know, semi-unified in a large portion, and whenever it was greatly unified, there were the great kingdoms that ran through, and there were 3 periods of those, but there was also 3 in-betweens. Now let's look at that inside guts of this, and you can see how there's 2 pyramids actually built in 3 constructions. First, we'll come up with a closer look, and I want you to notice that you can see the brickwork here and the brickwork here is radically different than each other. You can see that. You can also see a mending right here and right here, right? And if you'll look closely, they didn't start with the colossal bricks or colossal stones that they used. They started off with stones that were cut to the size of the Sumerian bricks. Millions of them. They're flat. You'd say it's probably about twice the width of a Webster's dictionary and 3 times as long. And that cubit style idea, but they're not squared off, and they're not like the stones that are used much later. These are indeed an exact mock of the baked stone mud bricks that, whenever they were baked, became hard as stone, and that shows you perhaps the connection of them starting with stone. The Sumerians didn't have stone. It was on a flat plain. You might as well be in Kansas and looking for a mountain. But strangely enough, the Sumerian symbol for land is 3 mountain peaks. And so it shows you they even know they didn't come from there in the first place. Lands is shown by mountain peaks, and yet where they were at forming all this, there really weren't mountain peaks. Only the distance and far north, where they run up into the Caucasus area and into the Black Sea area and all that, in Arata, where they themselves in the tablets say they come from. And so this would have been a mastaba at one time, and then they built on top of this. Let's look at that 3D diagram now. Okay, here it is for all intents and purposes, drawn out to the way that it would have been. And here's that missing part that we were facing. So that's the reason I showed you that picture and that edging. You can see the sections that were done and where they had broken in through here in that one dent. If you go back and look, there's a dent right here, and there's a misshapen spot here. This ran down through a large shaft and into here in what they call shaft galleries. This other shaft ran down here and ran both ways, but was blocked by a giant granite burial stone that was in here in this granite vault that was lowered down into here of granite from not here and all the way through these lines. And there's lapis lazuli blue chambers in here, which that harkens also to the Sumerians concept. And down at the end here is the king's apartment. Now, this looks kind of like a gigantic version of the ones that we find where it comes down in splits for the Sumerians. And this funny lines that are run up through here, that's where the tomb robbers ran through and stuff, and they got their second access through here. But this shows you P1 as being the setup here, and then P2 growing after. And so it was a 4-step pyramid instead of a 6, which it is now. You look all the way at the top there. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of something else that shows a Sumerian connection, and it'll be brought to us by Dr. David Neiman, and he's passed away now, but an excellent Egyptologist, knew his stuff, Jewish scholar, and studied all of the Near East. I have an affinity to him, and I like his presentations. It's got a series here he does, Cradles of Civilization.
Deposited had to be irrigated all year long until the next flood, and the irrigation was by hand, or what they still use it, by the way, and it's the Arabs call it a shaduf. It's a long pole. At the end of one pole you have a bucket. The other end of the pole you have a weight, either a lump of clay or something, and then you push the weight up and the bucket goes into the water, and you pull it down, and it brings the bucket of water over, and you turn it, and then you water your fields, and you keep on doing that several hours a day.
And this is how you irrigate your fields. Now, the neat thing about this is you could tell that this was kind of a little bit of a learning curve here. But there used to be 2 people usually involved with this. One was pushing and pulling the lever up and down, and he was having to guide it and throw it into another trough. And here you can see where they're taking it from there and putting it up here. He's taking it from there and pouring it down into an irrigation trough that runs down into the field. And they do these over and over again. It's got to flow all the way down into the field, right? And so they do these over and over again. Now they perfected after this, putting a weight around the end of it here, and that weight should weigh just a little bit more than that bucket totally full, so it makes this man work a whole lot easier. Now the reason I show you this is a Sumerian invention, and the Sumerians have this on tablets before they had writing, showing you also those reed buildings that I showed you. They're giant reed buildings. They never had little funky huts. Even back 4000 BC, they had these giant reed buildings and smaller reed buildings around on the water. And depending on where they were, they built them in different configurations and structures. But here we have that Sumerian connection again with where they get some of their knowledge from. And you can see later where this shows up in India, and later it shows up in China. And with certain things and technology passed from people to people to people, you can actually see where it comes from, sometimes origins and or trade routes where they connect to each other, and these people gain the knowledge from them. You know, it's like we had guns, then you meet these people for a while, now they got guns. And then later you're able to look back and go, well, these people got guns, they don't, and then now they do, but it seems like they're trading. Oh, wait, I found all these things from these other people back and forth now. They date at the same time. Yes, that's where they got their guns from. Most people don't make this connection, and nobody in Egypt wants to try to connect to Samaria, though.
Irrigate your crops, and you raise crops. And Egypt was very productive all through the ages. So much so that later on, when the Romans conquered Egypt, they simply assigned Egypt the role of being the granary of the Roman Empire. That's where they raised their wheat and their oil and everything else in surplus in order to distribute it over the rest of the empire.
Well, true. Whenever they took over somebody, a lot of times they would see what resources they had going, and they would just envelop that, make it even stronger, and exploit it. And of course, whatever they're lacking, they could make up for and due to trade. And of course, if they take over a large enough area, like your Alexander the Great and so on, you take over a group of people through a broad area, and you can get all of the resources together. In doing so, you can make a great kingdom and have it really flourish for a long period of time. And if done correctly, all the people involved flourish because now they have a trade that's unified with each other, and it goes from there.
They did what many empires do, that is, they made each colony or each province a branch of their economy and sort of restricted them to that. But the fertility of Egypt was very productive. Egypt, by the way, is called in Egyptian the two lands, and the pharaoh is called the king of the two lands, or the pharaoh of the two lands. Why? Because Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt are different from each other. Lower Egypt is the delta, and the capital of Lower Egypt was a city which is called in Greek Memphis. And Memphis was the capital of Lower Egypt. And Memphis is not far from modern Cairo. This is the...
But as he'll tell you, this is the Greek spelling, that it used to be called Monp, M-O-N-P, and that's what it shows you in the hieroglyphics. And of course, the Greeks, they always put I-S on a lot of cities, or O-S on a lot of cities, like, I don't know, Gnosis or something like that, or Memphis. And on people, whenever they deify people, they put us on the end of it, as in Cronus, Pegasus, Perseus, and things like that. And so you have to kind of take that off of there, and you can get the name of the people, because they always add that to it. It's an epitaph or an ending.
Greek form of the name, which comes from the Egyptian form, Moph or Monf, is the way it appears in the Bible in Hebrew, because that was the Egyptian name. You know, the Greeks and the Romans, they usually added a suffix like S or os to names. So it's known as Memphis in Greek, and that's the capital of Lower Egypt, the head of the delta. In the south, about 400 miles south, was the other capital of Egypt, which was called No Ammon. And No Ammon means the place of the god Ammon, his holy place, which the Greeks, for some reason, called Thebes.
He'll hint to it.
In
Why?
Greek literature, No Ammon is called Thebes. There was a city in Greece also called Thebes for some reason.
For some reason. Right. You see, Thebes is on the bend of the river, too, and that's a little telling, too. It was, you know how whenever the colonists came to New York area, that place wasn't called New York, and there was a place called York, and there's Yorkshire, right? There's Hampshire, and over here we have New York, New Hampshire, New Jersey, see how that works? Of course, they don't put new on the front of anything, and this is not meant to be like that. But then, of course, later when they come in, they make their own Hyrcanopolis, their own city of the sun. They make other things that connect to all these things, and to Baalbek and other places too. So
were capitals of kingdoms. Upper Egypt, south, capital of No Ammon. Lower Egypt, the north, capital at Memphis. Sometime around 3000 BC, which is about the time shortly after the origin of writing in Sumer and the rise of Sumerian civilization. There had already been a rise of Egyptian civilization, but around 3000 BC, a pharaoh, that is a king of Egypt, conquered and united the two lands and became in effect the pharaoh of the two lands. And from then on, it is called that. That is, Egypt is called the two lands. And that's why in Hebrew, the name of Egypt is Mitzrayim, which is a dual. You know, if in Hebrew, there's a singular, there's a plural, there's a dual. Dual means two. So it's called Mitzrayim in Hebrew, and it's called the kingdom of the two lands. And the pharaoh traditionally, by the way, wore two crowns. The white crown of Upper Egypt, the red crown of Lower Egypt.
Oh, that's true also, but this, they called it Mitzrayim. Well, if you'll look into it, Elohim, any of these I am endings onto things, deifies something, and it's like a godly people. And of course, these people called themselves gods. They were direct representatives on earth of the sun god and Ra. And so you have Mitzrayim. Now we can look in and see what Mitz means here. Let's let him finish for a second.
And the crowns are one inside the other. This is all part of their tradition.
If we look up names and meanings of Hebraic names and so on, you'll find that Mitz and Mitzi are Afro-Asiatic, Semitic, Central Semitic, or Hebrew. They say the origin is off of Hebrews, and this is the name. And they say another way of saying it is Miriam, Maryam. Now this puts together two things. Yam is the sea, right? And the sea god is Yam. Mary is the ocean. Mary is the waters, as in maritime, mariculture, and so on, you know. Mara, Miriam, Maria. They tell you that this name derives from ancient Greek names, Miriam, Maria, found in the New Testament, bitterness, loved, wished for child. Both these New Testament names were forms of the Hebrew name Miriam, widely used with the Virgin Mary, mother of Jesus, with the Saint Mary Magdalene, Mary, who was an apostle to the apostles. The name might be derived from the Egyptian word mir, M-Y-R, meaning beloved, or M-R, meaning love, like Mr. That is a connection to Saturn. Saturn was known by the Ur of the Chaldees as stir. When you say Mr. and Mrs., you're saying my stir, my Saturn, and Mrs. is my Zeus. Anyhow, or even the ancient Egyptian name Meriatman and Mary Amun mean beloved Amun, but beloved and merit, right, being something good, but Mereh being the water, right? Miriam. Other related names, Mary, Micah, Marion. You can see these names repeating themselves over and over again. Oddly enough, whenever you get into Dutch lands and things over in the far eastern Europe, you'll see the straight Mary, Marie, Dutch Mary, Miriam, Marie. It all goes through there. Mary, Miriam, Marigold, Maureen. Now, a moor in England is a bog. It is a watered land, a heavily watered land, a moor, like in the Scottish moors, like the Hound of the Baskervilles. The Moors, different than the concept of the Moors of North Africa, the Caucasian Arabs that came in and took over Spain for a period of time before being kicked out. People say it's all of Europe, but it was really just Spain. But you see this Mary, Maria, Maya, right? Mylin, Miriam. You get down here to Galatian and Jordan, and you can actually see Mara, right? Maria, Greenland, but here it is again in Hebrew. So they'll tell you that it has to go that. Even in Irish, they have Moira. Now they put A on the end for a femininity. So it'd be Moira. Maria, right? Mara. So you can see how that connects with that. Now, oddly enough, when you have Sumerians, the Aryans of Sumer, there is a Mer in the middle of that too, M-E-R, but M-I-R, M-Y-R, M-E-R, M-A-R, they're pretty much synonymous with each other. You can see that. And the name of Miriam. It's kind of a neat connection there. I just wanted to show you a few of those connections and show you that there are connections that show. And also, by the way, he mentioned Pharaoh there a few times. Pharaoh is a made-up word for the Bible. It means big house. And that's not the way that the Egyptians have referred to themselves. In fact, they didn't call themselves Egypt. People say that they called themselves Kemet. They didn't. They called the land that was fertile, the black soil area where they grew stuff at, Kemet, because Kemet means black soil. And they even show a denomination of area. And there are places that they grew it up farther south and up a little bit that flooded also, and down here. And there's places in between that don't quite have it. And they refer to them, each one, as being Kemet. So it's not necessarily the whole upper and lower Egypt that is called that in any way. They were called the two lands whenever they put themselves together. Anyhow, like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. And I just thought I'd show you a few connections with Sumerian and a little bit of the doctor's speech there to show you a few connections in the middle of that too, and his knowledge. Peace. Have a great day.